Hello, good morning, good evening, good lunchtime, whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome to sunny Edinburgh, where I'm doing a little live for the second time today, because the first time I managed to not choose my destinations quite correctly, and LinkedIn seems to have changed some of its rules, which I knew it had, but it seemed to affect my go live. So I will have a look afterwards and see if I'm live on both LinkedIn and YouTube in the horizontal format, but hopefully I am. So what is this all about? It's a quick look behind the scenes because I am starting a new show called Talk IT, and I thought I would do a bit of background as to what equipment I'm using, what software I'm using, what lighting I'm using, and things like that. And I also thought maybe that'll be useful to some other people to have a look at. And there is currently a 7-day live challenge, and I've decided to take in that live challenge. It's been set by Pat Flynn, and hopefully people will get something out of this as well. So for the people on that side of things, I've been using Ecamm live for quite a long time and going live for quite a long time. So don't be scared to think you're going to have to do all the stuff that I am doing on day one, but maybe you'll get some hints and tips as I go along about lighting and things like that, cameras, microphones, and then a little bit later in the week I may talk about Ecamm and how I've set up some of these scenes as well. So that's where we are, and when I do my show I will be using Ecamm Live connected to Zoom, so my guests will just join in a Zoom call. It won't look much like a Zoom call, but it will be a Zoom call, and I will all have my attendees also on Zoom, but potentially on LinkedIn and maybe YouTube as well, and be able to gather all sorts of comments, the sort of thing you're seeing down the bottom with placeholders at the moment, and put those on the screen as well. So for those of you in the Talk IT side of things, that's something that we'll be focusing on. So I mentioned it was sunny Edinburgh, perhaps a little bit too sunny at the moment, and I'll show you what I mean, because I'm totally overexposed and this isn't really a good camera look and feel at the moment. So let's just go through a little transition, and this is when I would run a scene and flick over to my guests joining me through a bit of a cloud of smoke. Hey guests, so you'll have noticed my guests today are mainly me. So I am running not one but two but three cameras today in different positions, and I'm going to talk you through each of those cameras and how to get them a bit better than what they are looking at the moment. So what are the three cameras that I have got going on? So in the little image down at the bottom right hand corner here, we can see a couple of the cameras I'm using. The main camera I am using is this one directly in front of me, the big SLR camera. It's a Sony ZV-E10 with a 1.4mm lens on it, and that's what's giving me the image in the big area on the left hand side of the screen. I then have this tiny little matchbox-like camera, which is an OBS-Bot Meet 2, and that's giving me the image where I'm kind of sitting a bit low down in the placement area and a little bit darker in colour. And then thirdly, I have got this image down at the bottom here, and that's what we call a PTZ camera, and it's another OSBot camera, and that one allows me to show you what I've got in the background and potentially show you me, and let you see what's going on behind me as well. So we'll have a look behind me. Not very much going on behind me at the moment, but that is a tiny little camera as well, and that looks something like this here. So it's a tiny little camera, and it's on a gimbal which moves around, and that's the pan, tilt and zoom. This particular one I managed to drop off a shelf a couple of times, so I think I've broken it, so don't do that. But the one which I am going to be recommending just for my guests to use is this tiny little matchbox of a camera. Now we'll be looking at ways to get that camera looking nice in later in the week, because at the moment I'm in the wrong place, and In fact, let's adjust that position straight away while I'm here. So when I'm in my show with my guests, I'm going to want them all sitting level and at similar sizes. And we use something called the rule of thirds, which applies in both photography and videography. And that basically says the screen split into 3/3 and your eyes should be on the top third and about a fist's worth of room above your head, which is what I've got in this large image, but not so much on the other image. However, I can move that camera about a bit using its gimbal, and I can just press some buttons and the camera will move about a little bit for me. So I can center myself or otherwise, and potentially zoom in if I need to. So let's in fact do that on this camera. Move myself in a little bit. Then roughly the same size. So it's something that drives me completely bonkers when I look at a show and people are doing a live and they're all in different locations on the screen and somebody's head's just peeping over the top like this, and while somebody else is right in on the camera and somebody else is at the back of the room with their feet up. I want everybody to look fairly even and evenly coloured. So at the moment we're not all evenly coloured, so let's look at a little bit of that, and I'm going to start by actually changing my look and feel on the main camera. So that's the ZV-E10, the big SLR type camera, which I guess is something like this kind of thing. This one's actually not, you'll see it's a Canon, but it's a much larger camera. You don't need one, but it does help. But the tiny little one also works very, very well, and we can play about with that. But the main thing that's going on here at the moment is my lighting is terrible. And one of the reasons my lighting is terrible is if you look at the lower image over there, you will see that I have got a shutter open with natural light in front of me. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close that shutter and I'm going to switch on a few lights both beside me and behind me. So at the moment I've just got the one light going on, and that's a big globe light, which is a diffuser, which will give me a nice soft light pointing down at 45 degrees at me. So that gives me some nice lighting, but because the shutter is open next to it, I've got too much light. So I'm going to close down some of my lighting and bring up some other lighting. So just bear with me while I swing my microphone away a second so that I don't knock things over. And I'll close the shutter. So shutter closed, and I'm brought on light number 2. So that's another light sitting next to me to one side, and that's just going to cast some light either side of my face. And you'll notice it's working much better on the large camera than on the smaller one, which is just doing auto white balance and auto focus at the moment. But let's turn on another light. And this one is actually sitting up above me and pointing down. Now those two lights that I've just turned on are Elgato mini lights, which I don't think are available anymore, but they're about this size and they're just a small LED panel. So I've got one of them pointing 45 degrees from that side, and then I've got my globe light from that side, and then behind me another light which is separating me from the background, so it gives me a nice degree of separation from the background. So let's go change the background, and we'll come back and talk a little bit about the other lights in a second or two, but I'm going to give myself some lighting in the background as well, and that is by a couple of LEDs which I can switch on from here. That's just give me a glow, so I'm balancing up the left and the right hand side of my scene a little bit with a bit of orange there. Now what I'm going to do is add some more colour behind me. Okay, lighting complete. So if you compare that with how I was looking at the very beginning of this show, I think you'll got to agree that looks much better now, just by adding some coloured lights behind me, which are kind of separating me out from the background, and a little bit of extra lighting to one side and above me. Just gives me that look and feel which is far more professional feeling. So talking about the lights a little bit more then, most of these lights will come with a setting that you can turn up or down. 5600 is daylight setting, and that's what you normally want, something around there. Maybe it's a little lower if you feel it's a bit too bright, and you can then change from 3 or 4 different colours of light quite often. So a brighter light, more glowy type light, a sort of softer light. So top end it'll be like you're having an LED light, which is very bright, which you don't want. You want a softer light than that. So choose a softer version of the light if you can. Maybe tweak those right down. Quite often you just want around 10% or maybe even less lighting coming in from either side of you. You don't want to be staring into a bright light bulb. So that's what's happening on those ones. So that's what's going on there. Behind me, the blue lights that you saw me turning on or something like this, which is just an LED strip. It's about 30 quid, something like that, maybe even cheaper. And you can change all of the colours that you want on that. You can even get a flickering version or even some smaller version, something like this, which I've just pulled off the top of my light stand there. So just little lights in the background are going to make all of the difference to your look and feel of your scene, and they're not much, again, $20-30. The one that you saw me pointing at the back, that is kind of like a large torch. It's about, again, $30 or $40, and you can place what's called a gimbal on the front of that, which is just a circle with some holes in, and that's what's giving me that nice window-like effect in the orangey gold colour behind me. I've forgotten to turn on one of the other ones behind me, which I'll go and do in a second, which is just a fake neon style hot on air thing. Hot on air, on the air. And it's just to add something in the background. Now the other thing you will immediately notice in terms of the difference between this picture and the one in the top right is that I've got a slight blur in the background. So the camera is very much focused on me with a slightly blurred background. And what that is a combination of the camera itself and the lens, the 1.4 lens on the SLR camera, which is just giving me that bokeh blur depth of field. Now that is something you can achieve to some degree with the little tiny Matchbox camera, the Obspot Meet SE as well. Not going to talk about that today, but you can actually get some great effects and some fake bokeh blur going on in the background. Nothing like the horrible remove the background type thing or blur the background that you get in Zoom. We're not doing that. I'm not letting anybody on my show to use that particular feature. It looks terrible, so we're not going to do that at all. So what else have we got going on? I mentioned microphones. You can see this one in front of me on the swing arm. Let's go back to the other position there, so you can see preset 1. So I've got this one going on in front of me. You'll notice the microphone is not in shot on the main shot, and that is because it's sitting just literally tiny bit out of shot there. I am speaking over the top of the microphone rather than directly into it, and that will stop pulses. The microphone, a pulsive is just where you go and you hear that horrible sound into a microphone. People will often say they'll forgive bad video but not bad audio. I think it's a combination of the two myself. But this particular microphone is a very famous one. They call it the microphone that you will have heard. If you look on almost any television show or vocal performance, you will frequently see this particular microphone popping up. It's an SM7B. It's a little bit expensive. especially once you connect it through a little box. This is a Focusrite box for XLR, and this is a cloud lifter here. Don't worry too much about all of those if you don't have them. It's not super important, but it does give me that nice depth of radio type voice. So hello everybody out there in radio land. It just gives you a nicer tone to the voice. But you could go to the other extreme. So I've got my tiny little Matchbox Meet SE camera. These are a set of headphones. Not headphones, they're not headphones at all. These are the headphones, but they come in a very similar box. Set of microphones from Holy Land. They're tiny, and that little wireless microphone clips on to your jumper or shirt or whatever, just like this. And that's how big it is. Tiny microphone. So you will get a very good sound out of that. It works wirelessly by clipping one of these little things in, and it just Bluetooths together. So you just pair them up, and that means if you or you and a guest want a set of microphones, you don't have to worry about big microphone stands and something like this going on. You can just have something like this clipped to your shirt or anywhere else that's convenient. And as I say, it's not even that thick part on the outside that's a microphone. The microphone is actually the tiny little bit on the front, really tiny. So I'm going to pop those back in the box because we'll show you the difference, or let you listen to the difference from those on a later show. So at a very basic level, that's what I've got going on with lighting and cameras. So that's what I'm using. With Ecamm itself, what's happening here is I can set up a number of different scenes, and scenes are just like slides on a PowerPoint deck. So if you think of a slide on the PowerPoint deck where you arrange different things in different places, it's the same with Ecamm. So if I want to move to a different scene, I can move to a different scene, and my cameras will move nicely with me as well. So all of that, and including the placeholders for comments and things, we'll have a look at a later date. But it means that I can create all sorts of different movements and scenes throughout my run of show, as we call it. And the run of show is just the series end to end, like a PowerPoint deck of different look and feels for each scene. And I can jump between them all as we go through, which means even though it's a Zoom call, it looks nothing like a Zoom call. What I'm also doing is I am live streaming in horizontal aspect ratio, in this case hopefully to LinkedIn if it's worked today, and to YouTube as well. But I'm also recording in vertical aspect ratio, and in the vertical aspect ratio, which is designed for your phone viewing, I can have a totally different layout. So if I go to live demo mode, you will see what is going on in my live streaming package. So turning on live demo mode, you're now seeing what I'm seeing on my very wide screen, which is not only a vertical version of my stream, but also over there the horizontal and the vertical at the same time. You can see them both going on. So again, if I move between these two different scenes, you can see there is a completely different layout within the vertical version. Even though effectively I've got the same sort of information, it's a different layout, and that is just so that you can see that on your phone. And that means when I've finished with this content, I will get a recording in the horizontal and in the vertical, and I can just hand this over to my guests and say, here's some content for repurposing, and they don't have to worry about chopping it all up or putting it into a special video editor. It's already sitting there correct in the vertical format, and they will know then that they can just immediately take a clip from this format and drop it straight out onto any social media that they like, and it's going to be viewable in a very nice look and feel on the phone straight away. No long real live edits. So let's come out of live demo mode, because I always forget to do that. And we'll be talking a little bit later on in the week about Ecamm and the way that that works. But for the moment, that's sort of a 20-minute version of day one of this live challenge, and also day one of a look behind the scenes. And hopefully that has gone live to LinkedIn as well today. As I say, they changed some rules recently, and I'm not quite sure how that's affecting the scheduling of things, but we'll come back and see. But for now, that will be me, and it's just cheerio from sunny Edinburgh. See you tomorrow. Bye.